one candidate, the question has to be applicable to both people, okay? So it can't be one for one person and one for another person. The question has to be for both candidates, okay?
For all five.
For all five for city council.
Are we ready? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the League of Women Voters of the Ripon area and our candidate forum. My name is Marty Farrell. I represented Ripon on the Fond du Lac County Board of Supervisors for 28 years, and I am a proud member of the League of Women Voters of the Ripon area. Tonight we will have candidates for mayor, as you see before you right now, and also for the city council. We thank all members of the audience for attending and providing questions for the candidates, but we also thank all the candidates for appearing and for being ready for public service. Your commitment to public service is greatly appreciated. Questions, as I mentioned, will be submitted by the audience and screened by the league members here to ensure that the questions are applicable to all candidates. Before we begin with the program, though, I want to take a moment to encourage everyone to vote. This year's spring general election will take place on Tuesday, April 7th. If you have not registered to vote, or if you need to request an absentee ballot, you may do so at myvote.wi.gov. That's the website, myvote.wi.gov. This link will also be available on the League of Women Voters of the Ripon area Facebook page. And that link will be shown during the live viewing as well as the taped replay of tonight's program. That site is tied to the Department of Motor Vehicles, and therefore you may use your driver's license number to register as a voter or as a means of photo identification to obtain absentee ballots. This is an important election. It will fill positions including the Wisconsin Supreme Court, Wisconsin Appeals Court District 2, Fond du Lac County Board of Supervisors, Ripon Mayor, Ripon Alderpersons, and the Ripon Area School District Board. Not all the positions are being contested, but several are, so every vote will count. We thank Riley Eisnogel and his team for their dedication in bringing you this candidate forum on the Ripon YouTube channel. This forum, while live tonight, is being taped and will be replayed on the Ripon Cable Access channel. This session will provide voters of Ripon with information on each of the candidates, allowing voters to make informed decisions. The candidates have drawn for position and will present in the order drawn. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for opening remarks and then also 2 minutes to answer each question. Closing remarks will be limited to 1 minute. The lead will change following the opening remarks through the closing remarks. We begin with our two mayoral candidates, Ted Grant on the right and John Sullivan on the left. They have drawn for position. John Sullivan drew first, so he will take the first turn at presenting his 2 minutes of opening remarks, followed by Ted Grant, and then we will alternate in terms of who will have first shot at the questions. With that, the floor is open for Mr. Sullivan.
Thank you. I've decided to run for the mayor of City of Ripon because I can no longer sit back and watch the current city administration spend taxpayers' money so recklessly and come up with ineffective solutions to large problems that keep getting worse. The final straw was the $140,000 annual wheel tax to fix neglected roads and utility infrastructure that'll take millions of dollars to repair. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet wound. After all the reckless spending over the last few years, like $1 million renovation for a park nobody uses, $200,000 for playground equipment nobody uses, used skate park equipment that should be taken to the landfill, walking trails too far that you have to drive miles to get to, $400,000 street sweeper to clean streets that look like they've been in a war zone, decals on said $400,000 street sweeper, unnecessary pieces of equipment, unnecessary vehicles, a $12 million public works building, $42,000 riding floor sweeper to clean the $12 million public works building. And the city administration says not to worry, if we don't have the money in a budget, let's hire a consultant to tell the citizens you should be happy to pay more taxes and fees. And if the increased taxes and fees aren't enough, the city has plenty of room to borrow money to cover all the things we want for the citizens of Ripon. And when the city administration runs out of ideas, money, they move on to the next city and leave the big mess for the citizens to clean up, just like Boca Grande. Some of the current city council members and some members of the city administration have been rude and condescending to me for years, and a lot of the citizens of Ripon. It's like the city of Ripon is run by bullies. I'm running for mayor to stand up for the citizens of Ripon that are too afraid to speak up or too exhausted to fight the bullies running the city. I've worked in banking and finance for over 30 years. I've always appreciated the customers that provided me a living. I cannot believe that some of the people running the city act like they don't have to be accountable or transparent to the people that are supposed to be working for. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Mr. Grant.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. For those who may not know me, I've been a resident of Ripon since 1991, a graduate of Ripon High School, a downtown business owner for nearly 3 decades, and the co-owner of Grants Package Hub with my wife, Sarah, since 2008. My wife and I have raised 3 daughters here, and Ripon is not just where I work, it's our home. Over the past several years as mayor, we focused on moving Ripon forward in meaningful, measurable ways. We've made major investments in infrastructure, completing critical road, sewer, and water projects, while putting in place a long-term financial management plan to ensure sustainability. We've developed a comprehensive water system master plan to secure the future of our drinking water, and we've strengthened public safety by adding paramedics and a second school resource officer. We've also worked hard to improve quality of life, creating a full-time Parks and Recreation department, building a new senior center, renovating the library, and expanding programs for residents of all ages. At the same time, we've supported economic growth by encouraging new housing, seeing 37 new housing units started in 2025 alone, and fostering business development through the creation of a community development authority and other programs. Just as importantly, we've strengthened communications and partnerships across our community while securing over $7 million in grants and donations to help fund these improvements. Looking ahead, there is still important work to do. We must continue investing in our roads and infrastructure, prepare for the Highway 23 reconstruction, and move forward with a new municipal well to protect our water system. We need to keep supporting housing growth, strengthening public safety, and expanding opportunities for residents and businesses alike. I am proud of what we've accomplished together, but I am even more excited about what comes next. I ask for your continued support so we can keep building a stronger, more vibrant Ripon for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now we'll turn to questions submitted by members of the audience. And Mr. Grant, you'll have first shot at this first question, and then we will alternate in order with the succeeding questions. The first question is this: if the wheel tax were to be repealed, what services or projects would you reduce or delay in order to keep the road improvements on track? Or would you accept indefinite maintenance deferral of the roads and other infrastructure?
Thank you. Before the wheel tax was instituted and our first 2 projects were lined up, our road replacement schedule was about 104 years, which is far longer than any road could survive. With the wheel tax instituted, after our first 2 projects went out to bid, we have reduced that 104 years to 52 years. That is the importance of the wheel tax. When we were coming up with options for finding funding for that money, This is the lowest impact on the Ripon residents, was $25 per vehicle. Other options were to cut funding for other programs, raise taxes in general, and both of those were shorter-term rewards that could be stripped away the next year's budget. With the wheel tax, it is by ordinance required to be used only for road projects, so it cannot be used for other general operating funds. The minimal $25 per vehicle, in my opinion, is a small price to pay for cutting our road replacement schedule in half. It's allowing us to do projects that we probably would not be able to without major cuts to other departments and stripping away other services that are essential to our residents.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan, would you like the question repeated, or do you have it in
Yeah,
mind?
you don't mind, sir.
No. The question is, if the wheel tax were to be repealed, what services or projects would you reduce or delay in order to keep the road improvements on track? Or would you accept indefinite maintenance deferral on all infrastructure projects?
Well, I really don't think the wheel tax is significant enough to really make a dent in the amount of work that needs to be done on the roads. I think some serious budget cuts need to be made. Just for instance, you know, they put the new Public Works building up, and they're going to spend $3 million tearing down the old Public Works building. I mean, I don't know why we just don't sell it for $1 to somebody. They could do something with it. There's $3 million right there. So that takes quite a bit of money that they'd be used for infrastructure, road work, whatever the case is. I just don't think that, you know, constantly taking fees from residents that, you know, really didn't have anything to do with the fact that the city hasn't managed the money correctly should be, you know, because really what it's going to come down to is $25 one year means $50 the next year, means $75 the year after that. You know, these fees never go away. I mean, I've been, you know, alive long enough to know that, you know, you talk to a lot of the other communities in the state, and, you know, like I said, wheel taxes, that start at 25 and then it continues to go up. So there's plenty of things that could be done to be reduced, that could reduce our budget, that could actually help with infrastructure without having to tax people with a wheel tax. Plus, I think, what does it cost to even administer something like that? It just seems like a waste of time and money, and it just really upsets the residents. So that's my feeling on that.
All right, thank you. We'll go to our next question. Mr. Sullivan, we'll address this to you first. Are you aware of government accounting practices and how they differ from private accounting practices?
Yes, to a point. I mean, I've been in banking for over 30 years, so I've lent money to, you know, cities, you know, municipalities, things of that sort. So, yeah, I mean, but it still comes down to, you know, do you have enough money coming in, or do you have enough money going out? And, you know, do you lend money on general obligation, or is it for special projects, or for special, you know, piece of equipment, or whatever the case is? So, yeah, I'm aware of that. So, but it still comes down to, if you don't have enough money to pay for something, you can't buy it. But the way government works, as opposed to an individual, is the individual has to earn the income, then they can spend it. Government spends it, then finds out a way to take it from the people that are actually earning the money. So.
Thank you. Mr. Grant?
Yeah, there is many differences between government accounting and private accounting. In private accounting, like you said, you have to earn the money before you spend it, or go get a loan for the money you need to spend. In government accounting, there's more restrictions on what money can be spent. There are different types of funds. For example, the water or sewer utilities have specific funds that cannot be intermingled with any other government or entities, including general operating or capital expenses. As far as revenue sources, it's basically just the property tax levy that we generate most of our income from. And those are very specifically required to be limited by the state. So we cannot raise taxes more than our net new construction. So it very tightly controls how much we're allowed to levy without going to a referendum, which in my experience, the city has not done since I've lived here for city budget at least. So there's a lot more to government accounting than there is to personal accounting. It's much more restricted and in-depth.
All right, thank you. Next question, we'll start with Mr. Grant. Do you currently use or will you use social media if elected? Do you believe in utilizing social media while you are in elected office?
Personally, I use social media very sparingly. I try to do most of my interactions face-to-face or by email or by phone. It's just much more personal. Our city does have social media accounts that we have a couple of people that do most of the posts. They're very well trained in it. They know how to get the messaging out properly. I'm not opposed to social media personally. I just don't like communicating in that fashion. I prefer, like I said, more personal interaction. If there is a reason for a mass post, I'm not opposed to doing that.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan.
I use social media very limited myself. I'm in the banking business, so we have to be careful about what we do on social media. I think I'm on Facebook, and I've got rental properties in Oshkosh, so I kind of use that for advertising at some point, but that's really kind of, things have passed on for that. So, you know, if somebody wants to use social media and they want to show me how to use it for, you know, a purpose that serves the city, I'm all for it, as long as, you know, it's going to benefit the city, I guess. And like I said, I think Mr. Grad here said that the city takes care of that anyway, so I guess I don't have any reason to want to be using it for my position, at least politically.
All right, thank you. Our next questioner wants you to explain your understanding of the city government structure and the relationship between the powers of the council versus those of the mayor with regard to the public purse and policy decisions.
Well, I'm relatively new to this. I do understand that the city council does make the votes. The mayor has the right to, they're part of the tie break, I guess, when it comes to that. As far as the city goes, it seems to me, I mean, I really don't know exactly how it all works. It seems like there's a lot of things done in, you know, closed session and so forth. So I guess I'm here to learn, to figure out exactly how this all operates. I guess, like I said, the one thing I was a bit turned off about was when I came to a meeting to try to talk about the wheel tax, and that seemed like everybody that was here for that particular purpose and providing public opinion was pretty much, you know, cut off fairly quickly. So I'm hoping to continue to learn, and, you know, maybe there's things that could be done better, I think, going forward. But so.
Thank you. Mr. Grant.
Yes, I'm very familiar with government structure and how the council and mayor interact. When it comes to budgeting, the council has the say. They create and approve the budget. The mayor has the opportunity to break ties, the ability to veto items, which can be overturned by the council as well. When it comes to closed session, there are very, very limited items that we're allowed to discuss in closed session, whether it's the performance review of staff or when we're negotiating contracts that privacy until the contract is fully negotiated is required. Or when it comes to a possibility of lawsuits to the city discussing strategy. Nothing discussed in closed session should be made public until the plans are fully developed and ready to bring to the public, or the secrecy or the privacy of the concern is resolved. As far as public comment goes, the structure of the city council meetings are to have public comment at the beginning. It is a time for citizens to bring issues to the council. At that time, the council does not respond to the citizen because it may not be a topic that is on the agenda for the evening. Discussion amongst the council happens later in the meeting. So we do listen to the citizens' comments, and we can bring those back to discussion during the rest of the meeting.
Okay, thank you very much. We have another question on infrastructure. How would you address the growing need for bridge and culvert repair within the city's budget, either the operational budget or the capital budget? How would you address upcoming need for bridge and culvert repair? Mr. Grant.
There is need for several bridges to be reconstructed or repaired in the city. There is one this year that is possibly going to be rebuilt if we have applied for some grant funding to accomplish that. Bridges are extremely expensive to replace. For example, a couple of years ago, we did the small bridge at the end of State Street, which doesn't look like much more than a box culvert, but just that little piece was between $200,000 and $300,000 because of all the required engineering by the DNR for water surveys and other required surveys. Bridge replacement is extremely expensive. So we have to prioritize when we can do these jobs. It definitely would fall into capital planning as opposed to general obligation. For example, this year we're trying to get a grant to repair one of our bridges. Another bridge that has been needing repair, but not as badly as the one on Pacific Street, which is the one we're trying to do this year, is the Jackson Street Bridge. But that 5 years ago, when we got the latest estimate, was about $1.2 million to replace that bridge. Just the bridge, no road leading to or from. So bridges are extremely expensive, so we're always looking for grants to fund these projects. If the grant comes along, we will move it further up the capital planning list. If the grant doesn't come along and the bridge absolutely needs to be replaced, we have to find other sources of funding, which may be getting loans to cover the replacement. But until then, we do our best to maintain them until the replacement can take place.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan?
Well, like I said, I had talked to some former city employees, and I think one thing that I've noticed, it seems like the budgeting process is kind of just a, here it is and this is how it's going to be. She had said that they used to stay up till 11 o'clock at night sometimes going through part of it and then steadying it right back the next day until it was all done line by line. I do think there's a lot of things that the city just assumes needs to be, done. And I think there's a lot of things that they've neglected throughout the years that, I don't think we need to constantly be looking for loans and so forth. There's money that can be used for things that are not necessary, that as far as I'm concerned, as well as a lot of the citizens that I've talked to are concerned. Again, the thing about any time when it seems to be getting funding from the government is that usually contractors are upcharging it quite a bit. And grant money is just another form of a coupon that, is something that usually is, normal people are gonna have to pay. The government usually ends up paying 140% of a project that the public can probably get for, non-public can get for, 100%. And really, the grant is kind of more or less a 40% coupon on something that's, 50% overpriced. So that's just kind of my feeling and what I've noticed in my career that I've worked with for customers and so forth that have been in the, government process of actually getting things built and so forth. Because there's a lot of red tape. And, contractors are just, they're not into that, so.
All right, thank you very much.
May I respond to that?
No, you can respond in your next 2 minutes. Well, those are the rules.
The next question, we'll start with Mr. Sullivan. Given that funding in any given year is limited and partially by state law, as was mentioned, making use of the available funds requires establishing priorities. What would be your top priorities in allocating City of Ripon funds in the coming 2-year period? And which current projects would drop down to the bottom of the priority list?
Well, I think our main concern should be the water quality in this city and the infrastructure for the water, which goes with, roads and so forth as well, because obviously, I'm familiar with this because I do have properties in Oshkosh, and Oshkosh was very, good at not getting things done for many, many years and just constantly patching things and, just, it was horrible. I mean, these streets were just terrible. They were worse than Ripon, believe it or not. But when they finally got the right people, the engineers and so forth that they hired that were involved, they did things right. It may not be done immediately, but at least when you're doing something in construction and you're trying to replace something, do it right. Get the road done, get the infrastructure, put the water lines in, get things taken care of, take the lead, water lines out, and do things correctly and, to make it look like it's supposed to be done, something that can last a long time. So I think that's, one thing that, the water and the roads kind of go together. As far as, I'd have to say it, the parks, the playground equipment, all these other things, I mean, a lot of this money's been spent already, but I just don't see that being a priority when we've got, our water is, seriously suspect, roads are seriously suspect. I think those are probably the biggest priorities I think that need to happen in this city.
Thank you. Mr. Grant?
All right, so going back to the last question and answering this one at the same time, the budget process, where we set our priorities, is a several-month-long process. Typically 3, 4, 5-month process. Generally speaking, the administration starts working on what they feel the priorities are back in June, July. They bring it to the council to get the council's opinion, typically in August, and then it's just developed over the next couple of months from there. So it is not something that's just thrown together. It's a very long process, and yes, we still do stay here till 11, 12 o'clock at night discussing the budget at budget meetings. So it is a long process. It is well thought out. He mentioned things like deferred maintenance, and that's why we're in the situation we are right now, because the city had deferred maintenance for several decades, electing to not raise taxes or tackle a project that might possibly raise taxes, just push it down the road. We're now in a situation where things are failing and we have to fix them. We don't have a choice. Priorities, like you said, infrastructure, we are tackling those priorities now, and I would continue to work on those projects. He disagrees with the amenities like parks or library. Things like that bring in residents. It brings in young families. These are people that we need to move to the city of Ripon. If Ripon starts shrinking, then we will have less tax base. Either taxes will go up or services will go down and will go backwards. So the priorities to me are to continue the projects we're doing, continue infrastructure repair, continue work in the parks. That brings in families, that brings in grandmas and grandpas that want to be near their families.
All right, thank you very much. Borrowing has been mentioned as part of the financial operations of the city of Ripon. What do you think of the current level of indebtedness of the city? And what future do you see in borrowing or issuing bonds in order to finance projects? Mr. Grant?
Currently, our borrowing is well within line of our financial management plan. We attempt to stay within 55, worst case 60% of our value. Currently, we're at about 51 or 52. So currently, we're well within plan. When it comes to the Highway 23 project, we are going to push higher towards that 55 level, as long as we follow our financial management plan. There's a very detailed plan on what projects we should attempt and how we have to find funding and what mechanisms we need to do to find that funding. Borrowing does bring interest payments with it, so borrowing less is always better, but projects still need to be done, so borrowing is necessary.
All right, Mr. Sullivan.
Well, I mean, I do think borrowing is necessary for the right things. Obviously infrastructure is a long-term, I mean, you kind of like to try to match up the maturity of the debt with the life of the asset that you're trying to finance. Some of the things that we've used debt for, I don't necessarily agree with. Like I said, the park situation and Selfridge Park, things of that sort. There's always, you can always borrow, as an individual, yeah, if you may have some available credit on your credit card and you can just keep borrowing it. But again, it comes with interest payments and it comes with, repayment, which also tightens the budget as well. So, I always lean on the side of, we really don't know where interest rates are going. I do really think that there is probably a housing bubble coming up sometime in the near future. I think we're naive to think that we constantly are going to continue to grow everywhere. Every city and town, they're always trying to grab more people and continue to grow. But the reality is that we're really not growing. I mean, as a country, there's less kids, it's growing less, the school districts have less kids, and everybody just wants to keep putting their head in the sand thinking that it's not going to grow, but everybody's after the same people. And if you make Ripon used to be reasonably priced to live, and it was an alternative to, say, living in Fond du Lac or Oshkosh or wherever. Now you're making it so that it's more expensive to live, and what is going to get somebody from Oshkosh or Fond du Lac to want to live here when they could live there with better amenities and more things to do and all those kind of things? That's just kind of my opinion, so.
Very good, thank you. Now we have a question regarding the public library. And Mr. Sullivan will ask you first, what amount of public funding do you believe currently goes toward the public library? And in order to fund other priorities, would you ever consider cutting the funding that is going to the Ripon Public Library?
I like the library. I haven't been there in a while. I think it's a good thing to have in the community. I've been in other communities that I've worked in, small communities where, they're not open, on weekends and things of that sort, which I think is a shame. I do think, though, that, I don't quite know all the details, and I'm sure there's a story behind all the turnover that we've had at the library, and I've heard stories on why that is and so forth, and I feel there's obviously a lot of things that went on there that a lot of people that were probably smarter than I am in the library business didn't like, and probably why they're not there any longer. So, everything in moderation. I think the library is probably not as used as frequently as it used to be. Now that everybody's got offices at home, people are working from home, they got internet on their phone. Like I said, I have not, I can't intelligently say that is our library being utilized to the fullest, or will it actually be used more by all the money we're putting into it? So, you know, that's kind of my answer, I guess, and, you know, I think it's a great thing to have in the community. I would hate to see it go away, but there's limits to everything. And, you know, how much do we need to spend on the library that may not be used as much as the amount of money we've committed to it?
Thank you. Mr. Grant?
As far as the level of funding that the city provides to the library, it's approximately $450,000 a year of tax dollars that pay for the library. They have other sources of income from the county, as well as some state funding and grants and so on. For example, this renovation that's being done is approximately a $2.2 or $2.7 million renovation, depending on how it finishes out with furniture. Not a dime of that is taxpayer money. That is all grant and private donation. So that is not taxpayer money for that major renovation. The library certainly is more than just checking out books. They have a lot of programming. They have programs for children. They have programs for retirees. They have a lot of resources for helping with situations. An elderly person could go in there and say, I don't know how to turn on my smartphone that my children gave to me, and they will sit there and help you through that. They're a very useful amenity to the community. They do a lot of good. Like I said, they do a lot of programming, a lot of educational programming. Example, you can check out a pair of snowshoes if you want to try snowshoeing. They have those there. Be good for this week. But beyond the library programming, there are other public amenities that are important for the city. Parks and recreation, they have a lot of programming for children, middle-aged people, retirees. The senior center has a lot of programming for anyone 55 and over. The city offers a lot of programs and support for our residents. And that is important that we maintain that and continue offering it to make Ripon a nice place to live, a safe place to live.
All right, our next question deals with housing. That is one of the biggest issues that we see in city after city all around the country. What is the current, your understanding of the current situation regarding housing in the city of Ripon? And the questioner wants to know specifically about your support for apartment-type housing versus single-family housing, and particularly concerned about what's your opinion about apartments that are planned for the Sanmar development. So housing in general, apartments versus single-family homes, and the apartment project in the Sanmar development in particular. Yeah, Mr. Grant.
All right, so for housing, a couple years ago we had a study done, which is an importance of having outside people look at our community to tell us what we need compared to other communities. The study said that we were between 0.5% and 1.5% vacancy rate, which is not healthy. We are way short on housing. At the time, they recommended that we needed to build, I believe it was 60 units immediately, and then continue that in the next 5 years with another 60 units. Since that study, we have built, I believe, 45 to 50 single-family homes and no apartment buildings. There's been a few duplexes, but no multifamily housing. The development in Sanmar is a 64-unit development, which is a combination of apartments and townhomes, and that offers a different type of housing, which we absolutely need. We need both single-family and multifamily. As far as multifamily, we're down to probably 15 developable lots in town currently, but we are working on a 15-acre parcel to develop that into our next new neighborhood. That is something that we're currently talking to multiple developers on to find the best fit for our community. But that may or may not include more multifamily housing. Because like I said, we need both. The unit in Sandmar will give us 64 units that will be breaking ground this summer and probably completing the end of next year. So that'll be 64 units of apartments or townhomes that are desperately needed in town. And we're still working with developers to build more single-family houses in town as well.
Mr. Sullivan?
So I am not in favor of the apartment complex in Sandmar. As a matter of fact, I think that whole Sandmar development was a disaster. And given the fact that I've been in banking a long time and I've financed developments before, I think the cities always are trying to, you can hire any consultant. Most consultants are going to tell you, well, we need more housing. We need more multifamily housing. I think if it's a great place to do business, then I think the developer should get his own money. Because I think the TIF districts were set up back years ago to try to get businesses to come in to generate jobs, and then those people would come and live, and then they would build houses and all that kind of stuff. It's really kind of gone off the rail, and it's really kind of just a subsidy for housing contractors to get, free money, basically. It's their down payment, because that's kind of how they operate. So I don't really believe in all these studies. City of Oshkosh is a good example. Way too many housing units there, multifamilies all the time. You get too many multifamilies, which compete then with the older multifamilies, which, then you've got issues with those landlords, and it just, you get the deteriorating, quality of home. And really the kind of people you're bringing in are probably not the kind of people you really want to, have in your community a lot of times, because basically what they're going to do is they're going to undercut to get them filled. They're going to offer deals and offer, subsidized rent to get them in here, and you're going to get what you get. I mean, Fond du Lac is a prime example, and even like with the Commonwealth developments we have here in this town, I think you'd probably, if you had to do a study, you would probably realize that that's where most of the, crime and things of that sort and bad things are happening are in those areas, so.
Thank you. Looks like we have maybe one final question for our mayoral candidates, and then we'll go to their closing statements. So here is a bit of a quiz question, I guess. Start with Mr. Sullivan. When was the Republican Party founded here in Ripon, and what will you do as mayor to preserve the historical significance of the city of Ripon?
Geez, I don't know. I think it's 1850 something, maybe. I honestly, I don't know the exact date, obviously, but I would have to say, it's where the city of Ripon, it's the founding, of the Republican Party. Our police officers have badges that say the founding of the Republican Party. I guess, I think it's something that we should celebrate and be proud of, no matter what we believe in as far as, our political party. So, something that I think is special to our town, so.
Thank you. Same question, Mr. Grant?
Well, unfortunately, like him, I don't remember the exact date. In history class, I was awful at remembering dates. But it was certainly in the 1850s, and I believe 1858 comes to mind, but I'm not entirely sure. So I apologize for that. What was the rest of the question?
What would you do as mayor to preserve the historical significance of the city of Ripon?
Yes, so with that, I believe it is important to preserve the history of particularly the Little White Schoolhouse. There was a lot of controversy over its repositioning a few years back, but in my opinion, it is in a very good position for people to access it. That way more people can see the history and learn the history, and is a great way to display it right there where more people can drive past it and more parking, more access. as far as teaching the history of the Republican Party. The founding ideals of the Republican Party are excellent ideals. I think we should be promoting those ideals and living up to them. And we should certainly be grateful for our forefathers for bringing those ideals to Ripon.
All right, thank you very much. Now we have a maximum of 1 minute each for your closing statements. Since Mr. Sullivan went first with the opening statement, we'll let Mr. Grant go first with his closing remarks.
Thank you again for being here tonight and taking the time to be engaged in our community. Over the past several years, we've made real progress investing in our infrastructure, strengthening our public safety, growing housing and business opportunities, and improving quality of life for all residents. But there is still important work ahead, and I remain committed to seeing it through. Ripon is a community of tremendous potential, and with steady leadership and a clear plan, we can continue building on that momentum we've created together. I'd be honored to continue serving as mayor. Please vote for me, Theodore Grant, on April 7th. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Sullivan.
I would like to thank the League of Women Voters for the opportunity to be here tonight. I would be honored if the citizens of Ripon would elect me as their next mayor, so I can stop the City of Ripon administration's reckless spending. A friend of mine that works at Alliance Laundry Systems as an executive manager told me recently that he's never been in a town, village, or city that when he takes a walk to lunch, feels he's taken his life in his own hands while walking on the sidewalks and driving down the streets. The condition of the streets and sidewalks are terrible, and that's coming from an executive that has to fly to Mexico City, Mexico for Alliance on a monthly basis. I wonder what the rest of the workers of Alliance, Ripon's largest employer, must think about Ripon. The goal of the City of Ripon administration should be to make people that work in the city to live in the city. I know there are a lot of good people in Ripon and would like to make the city great. We need to listen to the people of Ripon and not some outside consultants to help people they elect to make Ripon a better place to live and work. I want to thank you and vote for John Sullivan, Mayor, City of Ripon.
Thank you very much. Let's give them a round of applause. All right, now we'll ask the city council candidates to please come forward.
Way over there.
Just me here.
Same concept as before, we're happy to take your questions, just make sure that they apply to each person on the panel.
Is Ellen planning to?
She stepped out.
We'll wait, we're missing one. Then we'll introduce all of you.
By the way, Marty, wasn't that 1854 one? It's this Friday.
I was gonna say, I know it's like, March coming up, right?
I was hoping we were gonna have that question too.
I wanted to see March.
I knew that. Take your time, you will.
All right, we'll follow the same format as before, and we'll just go in the order of the districts. So representing District 1, we have Ellen Sorensen. District 2 to her left, Jonathan Gatsky. District 3 on the far left, Steve Reamer. And then the only contested aldermanic race in this election is for District 4, where we have the incumbent Doug Iverson on the right end of the podium and Luke Dresky second from left there. We'll take them in the order of the districts for the opening statements, limited to 2 minutes, and then we'll go to the questions. So please be submitting your questions from the audience. We can certainly use some of the previous questions, because I think they apply to the council as well. District 1, your 2-minute opening statement, Ellen Sorensen.
Thank you. I'd like to kind of thank the League of Women Voters for this, but I want to thank everyone in the audience for coming. I am running for a second term, and the reason I ran the first time, and it continues, though it has gotten much better, was as I watched the previous administration as well as the previous city council debate about keeping the dispatch center here as a beta site in Fond du Lac County, I knew they couldn't afford it. I knew they couldn't borrow for it. I know they couldn't cash flow it. And I tried to email council members. They didn't understand what I was saying. So I finally focused on the previous city council president, Al Schrader. And I had to lay out why they couldn't afford it on an operational level as well as a borrowing level. So I ran for city council because I realized that I was probably one of the only people in Ripon who understood government financing. I worked in the public sector for 15 years. My largest budget I did was for Brown County, which was $250 million. Smallest was Marinette County, which was $67 million. It also allowed me to recognize that accounting practices for both the city and the Ripon Area Fire District were not following government standards. And you have to do that. When I went to Horicon Bank to look at the funding for the fire district, I knew immediately something was wrong. And that led to about a 2-year search for what was going on. We now use GASB accounting, as does the city under this administration. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll go to District 2, Jonathan Gatsky.
Hi, Jonathan Gatsky. So I've lived in Ripon nearly my entire life. I was born in Ripon. My family has been in Ripon. I grew up in one of the oldest houses in Ripon. I went to Ripon High School. I went to Ripon College. And now I'm working at Alliance. I'm much older than you, so you would not have known me. I'm sorry. I'm married. I have 2 kids that are also in Ripon. So I have a vested interest in just Ripon succeeding in general. And by succeeding, I don't just mean economically. I mean socially, and that we all have to live here together with our surrounding areas, which is something that I like working on the fire district with, knowing that Nepiescum, the town of Ripon, the town of Brooklyn, who's not in the district, but like we all exist together, right? And we all need to come together and succeed. In my private life, I work at Alliance, managing a line of laundry equipment. I enjoy being one of the 3 people up here that can kind of say whatever I want, in that no one's running against me. I can really tell you guys whatever, but I mean, that's me. I think back to everything that I've done in the 1 term and the half that I filled in, and I think we've made a lot of progress as a city. I am a lot of times a lone vote no against for various different reasons. I think that there needs to be a little better of a split between where government can come into people's lives and where government needs to stay out of people's lives. And so I think of myself as a little bit of a voice of that on the council.
Thank you very much. Go to District 3, Steve Reamer.
Thank you. As you heard, my name is Steve Reamer. I moved to the city of Ripon in the 90s. A lot of people know me because I used to have the roller rink here, Ripon Skateland. I also had businesses before that, a drywall plaster business, which I was born into, and I did after the roller rink was finished here. And I did also work at Alliance Laundry Welding. So I've been pretty diverse as far as doing different things and meeting a lot of people. I was asked a long time ago to run for council, but because I was so busy, I kind of put it off. And I enjoy, and I'm really humble for letting the people of Ripon let me do this. I took over for a person that passed away, Howard Hansen, so I put in 2 years already. And as people would know, or hopefully know, that I really do care about the city of Ripon and the people of my district and all the people in the city, obviously. I am also the president of the Historical Society. I was a president of the Chamber of Commerce. And also, so I was very involved with the city this whole time. As far as goals in the future here, it's really important that I kind of watch the budget. I care about how much we are spending, and as the other people that are on the council, we don't just say yes to everything. I'm not afraid to say no. I'm always happy to hear from my constituents or people on the street. That's all, folks. So please call me.
Thank you. Now we'll go to our only contested race, District 4. And we'll hear from the incumbent, Doug Iverson, first, then the challenger, Luke Dretzky. Doug?
Thank you. I'm Doug Iverson, current alderman for District 4. I'm a substitute teacher and a licensed attorney where my practice is in Marcus End, where I am the principal attorney for Slate Estate Planning LLC. My family and I moved here to Ripon in 2006. In 2016, at the last minute, I decided to run for alderman. It was an open seat. My concern was the Boca fiasco with the downtown TID district. I was reelected from 22 until present. I've been on the Ripon Area Fire District Board of Directors from 16 to 20, and again from 2020 until present. I've also served on the Plan Commission from 2022, and as a Plan Commission alternate for a year or so after re-election in 2022. And I'm currently the longest serving library trustee. And I will second what Alder Sorensen said about the screwed up finances for the fire district. It's taken several years to untangle the mess and try to straighten it all out. And I hope that the people of District 4 will re-elect me.
Thank you. Mr. Dretzky.
Thank you, Marty. So as he said, my name is Luke Dretzky. I am probably a more recent permanent resident of Ripon, but I graduated from Ripon College in December of 2020. Following graduation, I went to Wisconsin Law School, where I recently graduated in May of 2025, and started my law practice here in Ripon in June of 2025. So I am about 9-10 months into my law practice, serving people on real estate issues, estate planning. I do some municipal prosecution work, traffic tickets, you name it, I probably assist in it. Though despite you might think I am probably the youngest person up here, of course, right, Alan, just a little bit. And being the youngest person, you might think that I come with very little experience. However, that's not true, given that I also am, a licensed attorney. I served 3 years on the Berlin City Council, 2 years as the president, and I served 3 years on the Green Lake County Board, on the Finance Committee, as well as on the Personnel Committee. So I understand how government works. I understand what you need to do with budgeting. I understand the process of passing resolutions, passing ordinances. And honestly, that's what you need for not only preparing for a new generation like myself to build a city that works for us, but also someone that has, the bones to jump in and get to work right away. So I'll bring steady leadership, even though I am the challenger. And just in closing on my opening statement, I want to thank the League of Women Voters. On top of that, I also want to thank, hopefully my wife's watching. If not, she's caring for our newborn son of just over 2 months. So I decided to jump into that at the same time of having the birth of a kid, because I care about the future of this city, and I care about creating a city that I can raise my children in, and hopefully my children's children in. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Now we'll go to the questions, and we'll go in the reverse order from the opening statements. So we'll start with Mr. Dretsky. There's a lot of concern being voiced, and we've heard some of it tonight, about the condition of roads in Ripon. How high a priority is this part of the infrastructure? How high of a priority would that be for you? And what do you see the role of the wheel tax, pro or con, in addressing the condition of Ripon's roads?
So definitely, roads are a priority. And I also don't want to, when I say that the roads have deteriorated, that also doesn't mean it's an issue with the current council as well as, the current mayor. Sometimes councils are dealt a bad hand and they have to work with the bad hand. And maybe the council members on here can touch on that and their experience with that. But when it comes to the wheel tax, I did speak out against it. I oppose it. One of the issues is, and I hope I can get more into it through the remainder of this forum, is the debt service and how it's actually utilized. So one thing that people should know, and the Mayor Grant kind of alluded to it, is you have a levy limit that you have to work under first. Once you work under that levy limit, there are some things that go outside the levy. One of them is debt service. So when you use debt service, you have to use it smart. And that's where my issue comes in, on how that service has been utilized. A prime example is the DPW building. Other examples is the park of $1 million, when in reality we need to be strategic on how we spend the debt. There's a reason why Ripon is the highest taxing jurisdiction in the county. Now, I've pulled the numbers, 2025. City of Ripon is the highest taxing jurisdiction. Why is that? Because I do not believe that we are using debt service the right way. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Iverson, same question. How high a priority should street repair be, and what is the role of the wheel tax in addressing that issue?
Well, the wheel tax at $25 had brought us in $150,000 for the first year. Doesn't seem like very much, but we're able to do, with a little TID money mixed in with it, doing 0.8 of a mile of roads. So I think it's very important, especially to those 40-odd single-family homes that live on Tabbitt and Hall Street, that their road is getting done this year. So for debt service, that DPW building should have been done 10 years ago or more. It was literally falling apart. So we had to bond and fix it. I expect that will be bonded out over 20 years or so, and it'll be there long after most people in this room are shuffled off this earth. There are some things that we've had to do. Now, the park, I don't believe we spent $1 million in Selfridge Park. There was at least $400,000 for the Nelson Knowles Stewardship Grant that was part of that, into that Selfridge Park. And I think that, I'm not sure, I thought we were using some TID money to pay for the rest of that part, but I'm not entirely certain. So I believe that roads are very important. In the previous 10 years, from 2010 to 2020, there was no major street reconstructions. It was just kick the can down the road and do a little bit of mill and overlay here and there. This is what it's got us today. So I'm urging that we continue on with the plan that we have until we get to 2030, and then we will get to the Highway 23 street reconstruction. So we need to keep going forward and watching what we're doing, but we have a financial plan for that. So anybody who wants to see it can certainly look at it, and it could be open for criticism, that's fine. But moving forward, I think the wheel tax is an important part of fixing these roads that are not really going to have good money for.
Thank you. Mr. Reamer?
Thank you. I want to thank everybody for letting me come here today and listening to me. The wheel tax, when we voted on that, I wasn't very thrilled about that. I know how the people of Ripon feel about that. My concern was it's just another tax on top of something, but as it went on, I found out that it was probably very useful as far as getting some money in without raising taxes towards, in a different way, towards your property tax. And like Doug was saying, at least the money is earmarked for the roads. It's not going to something that you wouldn't want. And the infrastructure around Ripon really needs a lot of help. Like they say, they've been kicking the can down the road all this time, and the Public Works is doing the best they can with the money that they have, and it makes it a tough situation for just the city, because if you ever go down some of the roads like the end of Jackson Street or Hall Street, if you have false teeth, you better hold them in, because you get jarred in there, and we have to have these roads fixed, and it's really important that we do that. And like I say, I'm not a spend-it-all kind of guy. I really watch how we spend our money, and not just for me, but for you, because it's important that we kind of hold our budget as tight as we can. And it just scares me to get too far out on certain things, you know. As far as being a business person, I know you have to live within your means, and that's important to me. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gatsky.
Just a question. It was how high the priority of the roads and then wheel tax?
Yes, citizens have expressed concern about road conditions, street repair. How high a priority would that be on your list, and what is the role of the wheel tax in addressing that issue?
Okay. Let me start with wheel tax. Sometimes I can ramble. I'll try to be fast. So I did oppose the wheel tax. I voted against it. At a theoretical level, I think the wheel tax actually does make sense, though. And I think it makes sense because an excise tax that is allocated to exactly where the revenue is coming from to the expenditure that it's funding makes sense as a tax, like a usage fee. The way vehicles are taxed today, from construction all the way to use, they feel overtaxed, and not a good transparency of where that tax money is actually going in a logical fashion. So in a world where inflation is as high as it is, and everyone's purchasing power is lower than it ever has been, putting an extra tax onto the end user doesn't feel like a legit use of taxation. I think that how the money is being used is appropriate, as the way that it's actually structured in the ordinance of the city. So the way we're using it, I can appreciate that it's going to exactly what we say that it's funding, but I do oppose our use of the wheel tax. And I feel that my fear is that as a city, when we institute it at $25, there's the potential in years to come that it increases, and Fond du Lac County implements their own, and then that increases, and all of a sudden there's like a compounding effect of a tax that wasn't supposed to be there. The roads are a priority, I would say, for everyone on the council, and I think, like almost everyone has said, like there was an inherited problem of deferred maintenance for the past however many years, and I think the best way to do that is to build out the road plan that we're working on, address the worst roads first, apply for grant, federal, local, state money wherever we can, and go from there.
Thank you. Ms. Sorensen.
I don't think anyone really was excited about the wheel tax. It came up in a budget meeting, and initially as the president of the council, I was reluctant to even talk about it. But as I began to look at the budgeting, and we're looking at the indebtedness, and I'm going to try not to geek out on you all here, but we have an equalized value which is given to us by the state of Wisconsin. Luke's shaking his head, yes. Okay, stay with me. The threshold for borrowing within that equalized value is 50%. We are at 52%. So we are in the ballpark. But it is not good practice to increase that because it's more money for taxpayers to pay back, but you also have to pay a higher percentage as your credit rating deteriorates. So we don't want to do that. So how are we going to fix the roads, which is a priority? All infrastructure is a priority. Sidewalks, roads, water, sewer, it's all been deferred. So by implementing the wheel tax, we are able to do mill and overlay on streets that we wouldn't be able to adjust or to do. We also have county roads and we have state funding for roads. Now, the more miles we do, the more money comes back to us from the state, thus allowing us to do more roads in the future. So while it does seem burdensome, there is a method to this madness, that the more we do, the more we get from the state. And that is one of the reasons the wheel tax is actually going to be a good thing for the roads of Ripon. I'm done.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go to our next question from the audience, and again, we'll reverse the order. So, Ms. Sorensen, you'll go first this time. The questioner asked, do you feel that the government's subsidizing of housing has distorted the real estate market in Ripon? And is it fair to those who aren't getting the government subsidies? So do you feel government subsidizing of housing has distorted the real estate market in Ripon?
I do not. I do not, because how many meetings have I sat in on all the boards of directors that I sit in on the city, and how many businesses such as Alliance Laundry and the hospital are begging for housing for employees who want to live in Ripon. Right now, we import our workforce. Those people want to live here. They want to pay taxes. They want to utilize our school district. We have a great school district. They want to utilize our parks. They want to be here. Right now, we cannot accommodate those people. And if we have a TID that will allow us to help bring this along, like the 64 unit in Sandmar, that's great. In fact, we've talked about this. I think we need more vertical housing. I don't think 3 stories, 2 or 3 stories is great. We need more vertical housing. Let these people come in, rent for a while, and then maybe buy a house or build a house in Ripon. But we certainly are not accommodating the people who want to move here.
Thank you. Mr. Gatsky.
Sure. I like the question, honestly, and part of me wants to geek out, use your word, but I won't. But do I think government subsidized housing can distort the market? I think any government funding into infrastructure or any form of market can distort it, and that should be a huge red flag for any government, like the ability to go in and distort the distortion that can happen in anything that we're funding. Do I think it's happening in Ripon? I think that, so I voted against most of the developments. I think probably all of the developments. I don't think I have voted yes for any of them, but do I think it's distorting our market? I think if it is, it's at a very small percentage for a city our size and the amount of housing that we're building. I don't agree with the use of government funding for, not to say subsidized housing, but the way that it comes out is subsidizing builders, subsidizing an income of people that would already potentially buy the house. When 60% of our city, or the majority of our city is at $60,000 income, the housing that we end up subsidizing the builders or the first-time home buyers aren't like the majority of who makes up our city. Like, that's not my constituents in my area. And I think that TIDs can carve out sections of cities that end up bypassing adding any amount of revenue to the city proper as a whole by relegating that money to their own TID district, which I find problematic. And again, it becomes more problematic in larger cities where you can start to have gentrification happening all around TID districts, which we don't necessarily have in Ripon.
Thank you. Mr. Reamer?
Yes, thank you. I think as far as the TIDs and things like that, if a subdivision person comes in and decides to build a subdivision here, I can understand why the city would want to help put in infrastructure, because that's important. In other communities, I've seen that happen. I'm not too fond of funding after their first phase, the second phase, because generally they already have their infrastructure in. And with the money that they made off the houses that they sold, they should be able to pay their own way, I would think. As far as the debt goes, you don't want to get too far in with this. As you can see, I'm not a great public speaker, but it concerns me a lot that the builders are the people that are coming out ahead on this. The people that buy the houses are not. Once they sell a house to the person, guess what? Their taxes are way up there, but the builder, he gets a freebie. So that's one thing that really concerns me, and that's where I'm saying, as far as infrastructure for the subdivision or whatever, good, have it in your TID district, but do not keep funding 4 different phases for these houses for the builders. It just bothers me that they do that. So that's all I got to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dresky?
I thought we go, isn't it Doug and then me?
No. We're going in reverse order.
Yeah, I thought that was the order, but that's okay. Yeah, I'm not gonna argue with Marty. Marty said go, and I'm gonna go. Okay. So first, speaking on the subsidized housing, I just want to be clear when we're talking about subsidized housing. Are we talking about just the government involved with just development in general, or are we talking about low-income housing? Because there's a key difference there. If we're talking about low-income housing, generally I'm of the belief that we don't need that in Ripon, because if they do get a full-time job at Alliance Laundry, they can't qualify for the low-income housing anyways. I don't want to say basically not working, but you are not able to work much. So if that's what we're talking about, definitely not a fan. And when it comes to development, specifically in Sanmar, this is where I spoke to the council about the 64 units going up in the Sanmar development. I think it was poorly done. It should not be going up in Sanmar. As a resident on Sanmar Drive, when I bought my house there, we were given in our purchasing agreement that there was obligation that there was going to be a park in this location. So we came in, bought in on that idea. We found out the city already sold the land for $1 to a developer, and now they're going to put 64 units up there. On top of that, regarding Sanmar, is the issue that I don't think the city should be involved in propping up landlords when we should be propping up people to buy homes. As someone like myself, 27 years old, people are looking for homes in Ripon. They're looking for starter homes in Ripon. There are ways to go about that. I do not believe apartments are the solution to that. As an example, as someone who just bought their home in the Sanmar development, my property taxes were over $7,000. So as being someone 27 years old with my first kid and my wife, running my law office fresh out of the gate, paying $7,000 plus in taxes, there is an issue there. If you really want young people to move here, work in the community, you have to address taxes. And part of that also is the city should be involved in single-family homes that are going to be bought by people and owned and lived in. That's the solution to the housing problem. That's where I think the city can be involved, but I do not think they should be involved in apartment developments.
Thank you. Mr. Iverson?
Thank you. TIDs are great. We use them in a very effective way, but I'm thinking of another way that has not been mentioned yet. So the use of a TID closure and recapturing the last year of increment and using it for housing. I believe many of the houses in the Sandmar subdivision were recipient to the builder once they got an occupancy permit of $10,000 from the city. I believe that's why most of those houses were built down in Sandmar. There was nothing before that. When we started incentivized builders to do that, that's what we got. Now, we did have some starter homes built over on Scott Street. They come in about $280. And that to me is really not affordable. But there we go. Everything has gone up. And as for the apartments, we talked about this 3 years ago. We've rezoned it, and I know Mr. Dretsky voted against those apartments on the Plan Commission. That's a matter of public record. I'm for them. I live on Fenton Street. When I moved there were no apartments there. Now there are 3 big ones. And I know it's not quite the same, because I have 3 big ones, and some of those people use Fenton Street as a drag strip. So you put up one of those flashing signs to mark your speed, they try to exceed it. Okay, so there's a cop over there sometimes that nails a few of them. And it's gotten better because the black pickup truck has left. But, I mean, yeah, so it is a much more congested road than it used to be when I first moved in there. But that's where we put the apartments, that's where the apartment owner has decided they want to build them there, so that's where we're gonna put them. I think for traffic, once we develop the 15 acres to the south, there's gonna be traffic going that way and out to Matoman that way. So, yeah, petitions are important to help, but we have other things to do.
All right, thank you. Now we'll go to our next question, and we'll start with Mr. Iverson, reversing the order. And this is the concern about the public library. What is your opinion about the current level of public funding for the Ripon Public Library? And would you ever consider cutting the funding to the library in order to fund other priorities?
I would never cut the library funding. If it were up to me, I would never vote for that. I think things are gotten to be more expensive. Books have gone up tremendous in cost. I think we're going to probably trade paperbacks are like kind of just not being done anymore. So we'll do the best we can with what we need. I think the funding should go up. There's an incredible amount of people, and the council gets that every month. The services provided by the library to the community. I'm really excited about the renovation going on over there. I was over there tonight, and there was a group of people, and I forgot they were meeting on Wednesdays. They were doing Magic the Gathering, collectible card game there. The room was filled, and they were having fun. They were some of the nicest people I've ever met, and I know there's other activities that go on there, and there'll be more that go on there over time once the library fully reopens. So no, I wouldn't cut the funding.
Thank you. Mr. Dretsky.
Thank you. First, I want to go back and just address one more point on the Sandmar development. So part of that whole conversation was regarding bringing in affordable housing. The starting rates for those apartments are $1,800. And that was when they originally opposed it. It's probably going to be close to $2,000 by the time they're done. At that point, respectfully, you can pay for a mortgage on the house. So it's not bringing in affordable housing for, middle-class workers. That's high-priced apartment units. Now, with regards to the library, so under the budget that was asked in the question, so it was about $450,000 is levied on the taxpayers out of the library, but it's budgeted, I believe, $750,000 to $780,000 of services. But then they get revenue and other stuff from either state or other sort of fees in the county, as an example. I'm a big supporter of the library. I wouldn't touch it. One of the reasons also being we now check out a lot of children's books from there. And my wife, being a teacher, loves to read new books every day to our son. So we have been now habitual users of the library. And I can't say that was probably the case, my last probably 26 years of my life. But definitely we are using it. And I do not want to see anything touch with the library at this moment. Thank you.
Mr. Reamer.
I wouldn't cut the budget on the library, and the reason is because they offer so many services. And there's so many people that are involved with it. I'm the oldest guy on the council, so I'm kind of a dinosaur, but I do read books. I'd rather read a book than sit there and look at a computer. It's important for children and the programs that they have been doing for children. I know with the Historical Society, they've had programs over there as far as history goes in the city of Ripon. And it's important that we utilize that venue for that kind of stuff, because otherwise it just wouldn't be done. I'm pro-library here, and anytime that I can go there or I have a question, there's always someone there to answer it, and it makes a big difference. And trust me, I got a lot of stuff, because in the Historical Society, we have every newspaper there was in the city of Ripon, but try to find it, wrong. It takes you years to look through all those papers. So anyway, I'm very pro-library here. And the amount of money that we spend, and plus all the grants that we get, and the improvement that they have in that building right now is going to last years to come. So it's a positive type thing. So thank you, everybody.
Mr. Gatsky.
Yeah. So let me say first, no, right now, I don't think there's a reason to cut the funding in the library. I have my same library card that I got when I was probably 10, and I was learning cursive, and I can barely understand what my signature is on that card. We go to the library, I think, every week, and then pay more in our fees the next time we go for all the late fees. I think that if the question is really, do I think the library should continue to be funded exactly as it is? Should the funding go more? And a larger question of all of the departments, how does funding work, right? If that's really the intent of the question. I think the library, the police, administration, I think every department needs to have some manner of proving efficiency, right? So there needs to be not auditing per se, but the library needs to be looked at every once in a while to make sure that they're functioning in a way that is efficient. And I don't specifically mean just at a personnel level. I mean to make sure the hours that they're actually open, they're actually getting enough clientele in those hours, because that's changing over the years. That changes by the season. That changes depending on how technology is going in the world. They offer a lot more than just books. They've branched into offering museum passes. They have rooms that people can check out. So, I mean, the library, parks are one of the only places that people can go where they don't have to spend money in a city. You can be a citizen in a city, and you can go to a library and you can sit without having to spend any of your money. You can go to a park and you can do the same. So it becomes a communal good that we really need to maintain as much as we can as the world is changing and those services need to change. So no, I don't think that funding needs to be cut, but we can always look at efficiency.
Ms. Sorensen.
We have held the budget for taxpayers to possibly a 1% increase annually, which is $4,000. There are different multiple funding streams for it, and we have new leadership, and it's going well. And I'm going to go back to the fire district as well as the city. The funds were not using correct accounting practices. They are now. And there is more transparency on money. So they are doing a very good job, and it is such a wonderful asset for the community. I used to spend hours down there as a small child growing up in Ripon. It was my sanctuary, and I would hope that it continues to be a sanctuary for children. The services they offer are so broad. There are classes for people, older people like some of us, to use how to use their smartphones. There are the archive, Steve talked about the Historic Society, and I'm the interim director for the Little White Schoolhouse right now. So I don't go to the library. That stuff's all scanned in. I can go back to 1854, and I can look at the Ripon Herald, and I can see the call to the the founding of the Republican Party. I can see the articles about the Kansas-Nebraska Act. It is so much easier than having to go through paper. So it has wonderful resources for people.
Thank you. Next question. We'll start with Ellen Sorensen. How do you see the proper relationship between the city council, the mayor, and the city administrator? What are the proper roles for each of these parts of our municipal government, and how should they work together most effectively?
Well, as a former county administrator, I understand administration. Worked with Marty, who was an elected official on the county board. The responsibility of an administrator is to steer the ship. They are to find efficiencies. They are to manage staff. That has not happened in previous years. When you manage your staff and you have staff meetings, you get efficiencies so that you can then save money in administrative costs. The mayor in Ripon is a weak position. They can break ties, kiss babies, and veto. City council is the legislative arm. We hold the power of the purse. We hold the power of policy. Recommendations can be made. That doesn't mean we're going to accept it. We can ask to amend resolutions, which we have done. We have asked to amend timeframes, which we have done. And we can say no to spending that we don't want to have spent. So the council really holds the power. The administration is a supporting role, and the mayor is there to break ties and veto things if he so chooses.
Thank you. Mr. Gatsky.
Yeah, so I mean, you answered it really well. It's really hard, but I would say city council helps set what we think the vision is for the city, in my idea, right? So we, as a rotating group of city councilors, have our own various thoughts of what we want the city to be in the future. And the administrator helps find whatever money, whatever legality, whatever needs to be done to help set our vision forward. If the administrator has different ideas of where that can go, the city council is the check to that. I mean, we vote on what ordinances we want passed or we do not want passed. The administrator can help supply us with the ideas of what he thinks our goal is, and then it's our choice to agree or disagree with him. The mayor, like Ellen said, is weak in the veto and breaking ties. I would say the mayor is also more than a figurehead at our meetings, but the mayor also serves as sort of to help guide the conversation, to help translate a little bit what he can between maybe what the administrator and what the city attorney is saying to give his own opinion. But beyond that, there isn't a lot that the mayor adds to what our part is.
Thank you, Mr. Reamer.
Boy, it's hard to follow up with the two esteemed people that I have to follow up on because they kind of covered everything that was I was going to say. Yes, the council people are very, very important because, as there was said, we have the power to say no to certain things or express our viewpoints. Actually, a lot of our viewpoints are the public viewpoints. They're not my viewpoints a lot of times. There's times I vote for stuff that I disagree with, but my constituents want it. They call me up and say, hey, you know? And that's where it's important for us council members to get some feedback from the public. It really bothers me when I don't hear anything, it's crickets, when we try to figure out what's going on. And the city, whenever we have something go on the council, it seems like if we vote for something, when do I hear the most about it? After we voted on it. And it's kind of like, wait a minute here. I like to hear the stuff ahead of time so that, you know, if people disagree with something or they want to voice their opinion, please call your council members, because if we, in our mind, you know, weigh the pros and cons, we can say yes or no, but it's your vote, it's your ideas that we have to come up with. It's not my ideas, you know, because otherwise this is useless. I mean, this is for the public, and we're just representatives of the public. And it just bothers me when I don't hear from anybody, and all of a sudden after we vote, it's like, holy cow. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Mr. Drutsky.
Thank you. First, it's hard to look smart on this topic when everyone else covers it so well, but at least I'll try to add something to it. And they've kind of touched on it, everyone up here, but one of the important roles that you also have to identify, you know, within, we have the mayor, we have 4 districts, each district has 2 alderpersons, and each of those alderpersons are their own individual person, and their job not only is to represent their constituents in the best way as possible, but also go out and talk to their voters when issues come up. Be active in the community, show up to community events, you know, go and stop by the senior center, you know, just to hear like what their concerns are. Go stop at the libraries, hear what their concerns are. Talk to the police department, talk to people involved with the fire district, because there's definitely a lot of concerns that are there. You have to be active in the community to understand what the community needs. And that's where I think individually, when you have 8 council people, that's how you divide and conquer in such a way to where ultimately the resolution that should come in front of the city and the mayor for a vote is the product that benefits the whole city. And if every council person is doing their job properly in you know, reaching out to their voters, then ultimately I think the city benefits, the districts all benefit, and ultimately, you know, it trickles up, the county benefits, you know, hopefully we can, you know, show some sort of resolve and the whole state can benefit. Ripon can be a great example to that. You know, it's kind of like when you have, like we have the US Senate, we have all the states. The states are the testing grounds where policy happens and it trickles up to the federal level and they try to implant it. Same thing can happen with local government. This is the testing ground where we throw ideas at the wall and we see what works, what doesn't work, what we might try, what we might not try. And ultimately those ideas originate from your constituents. Thank you.
Mr. Iverson.
Well, it's been said very well so far, but I'm going to add a couple of things. First of all, I'm going to note that everything to do with alcohol in the community at an event or a liquor license all comes before the council. We have to approve it. We do not allow city staff to make those decisions. That's on us. Second, city council hires, fires, disciplines, and sets salary for the city manager or city administrator, and we also hire the city attorney. So if at some point we didn't want any of them, the council could change that. But I myself am satisfied with the staff that we have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, we have 2 questions remaining, so I'd like to cover those. A third question did come in, but it deals with a topic I think everyone has already expressed themselves on, and that's the housing issue and the degree of subsidization and so forth. I understand the concern of the person submitting the question, but I think that's already been covered pretty clearly, whereas these next 2 are new topics. And the first one here, which will start with Mr. Iverson, and it's left a little bit vague, but maybe you can, with your knowledge of city government, can fill in what they're looking for. The question simply is, how do you feel about changing zoning?
Well, that is pretty nebulous. Well, for instance, we did change the zoning to, I believe, R3 down in Sandmar for those apartments. So where it made sense to the council, we do that. We've done a lot of other kinds of zoning changes throughout the community in the last 4 years, including allowing accessory dwellings, blessing the houses that already had an upstairs apartment that divided up. So where it does make sense, we changed the zoning. I think that's the best answer I could give.
Thank you, Mr. Dretsky.
Thank you. So as a current member of the Plan Commission, we're currently tasked with a comprehensive overhaul of the zoning for the city. One reason is if you try to read the zoning code, I swear it's probably 200 plus pages, and it contradicts itself a lot, doesn't make any sense. So we've been moving through that slowly, but it needs to be done. The zoning ordinance is poorly written. And then part of that that you have to consider not only on the Plan Commission but also on the council is, what is the goal of zoning? What is the goal of the city for, what do we want to have and not have in R1 districts? What do we want to have in R2s? What do we want to have in the industrial park? The businesses, the downtown commercial districts. Those are all conversations that are being had at the Plan Commission, so hopefully we can bring a product that fits the city and its future needs. Part of that too is also future planning, as in where do we see the zoning heading in the future? The way I generally understand how I look at zoning is when you build houses, you slowly build houses on the outlying district of the city, and then eventually you upgrade the houses, so to speak, and put R2 housing in where there maybe would have been previously R1 housing by a developer, and so on. That's kind of how the zoning is supposed to work. Historically, that's probably not the case. Just there's a lot of issues with zoning, not only just in Ripon, but in a lot of communities. So hopefully from those conversations at the Plan Commission, we can not only establish a zoning ordinance that makes sense, it touches on the needs of the community, but also addresses concerns that have been raised, but also creates a path forward for new zoning, new development in the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reamer.
It's kind of ironic because just before I came to this meeting, we had a zoning meeting. And the zoning board that we have, because I'm on the council, I was on that, we weigh everything very, very carefully. We look at all the ordinances that they have. I was on the Plan Commission for years and years in the city of Ripon here before I was even an alderman here. It's important for the city of Ripon to move forward and not let people just build anything anywhere they want. They have to follow some of the rules. And there are times that we bend the rules a little bit, say somebody wants a fence in a certain area that's so high. Yes, the zoning commission does look at all that kind of stuff, and they look at the fine print. I mean, we're looking at all sorts of different things when we're weighing the pros and cons of stuff. We just don't want everything willy-nilly around the city here. And as far as for subdivisions and things like that, yes, I was on I used to build roads with people. So I understand how they put subdivisions and highways and roads in. So that was very important when I was on the commission, and I can read plans. It's not like I don't understand what's going on here. So the zoning is part of that. And it's just very, very important. And people don't understand, a lot of people don't understand that there's more than just the Plan Commission, it's the zoning for where they can build things. So, yeah, it's just not a free-for-all for everybody. We follow through on everything. So just so you know.
Thank you. Mr. Gatsky.
Probably the counter flavor to that comment, but I I would say that it's going to be a twofold answer, and one is the immediate, and what I would say Ripon can be working on, and at a higher level, what my thoughts are on zoning. I think whatever the city can be doing to trim down the amount of zoning regulations that we have, keeping residential as residential, keeping commercial as commercial, industrial as industrial, but really lessening the burden that is in each of them to allow as much development to happen in the residential as can happen in commercial and industrial. I think we've been going in that direction right now already, and what we allow for mother-in-law suites and stuff like that on buildings. But as much as that as we can push forward in reducing the legal red tape, I think is beneficial on the side of development. The counterpoint to that is that I think that can happen. In general, I think that zoning is putting more burden that needs to be there, that without zoning, it opens up residences and communities to form their own voluntary bodies, that, like, not to say an HOA, but similar to an HOA, like Houston. Houston eliminated all of their zoning, and they've had like tremendous development growth. They've done a poor job as a city in planning out how that elimination of zoning has worked, that I think that they should have found a better middle ground to make their city a little more pedestrian and user-friendly. But somewhere in there, I think, is what the goal should be, in eliminating as much zoning as possible to allow development while still creating a city that people want to live in.
Thank you. Ms. Sorensen.
Zoning is not an expertise of mine, and I needed to learn a lot about zoning. And I like to learn. The three of us are all graduates of Ripon College. And one of the things we're taught is how to learn. So attending a League of Municipalities meeting a few years ago, I went into a workshop on zoning. And as I sat there, it's sort of like the light bulb went on, and I was like, whoa, we really need to overhaul our zoning. So I'm glad to hear that you all are working on it. I would like to see what you all come up with, because it's interesting to sit in a meeting and kind of go, oh, we're not doing it right. So again, not an expert, but I'd like to see what they come up with.
All right, thank you very much. Now we'll have our final question, and once each of the panel has had a chance to respond to this question, then we will reverse the order one final time for a 1-minute closing statement. But your final question is very appropriate for people in your positions. Should there be term limits for City of Ripon government representatives?
Me to go first?
Yes.
We have term limits. They're called elections. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gatsky.
I mean, yeah, I'm still laughing. But yes, it depends on how the term limit is asked. I mean, yes, our term limit is our elections. I do think that there should be a maximum that we're allowed to run. I don't know what that number is. It would have to be a discussion that we would all have. We'd bring in the city and figure out what that number is. I think every elected official should have a term limit. I think every judicial appointment should have a term limit. I think term limits in general are a necessity that as a country we've just missed in general.
Mr. Reamer, your views on term limits for Ripon officials?
I think there should be term limits. As the oldest guy on the board or on the council, you don't want me to fall over dead doing this. So anyway, the point is I wish people would step up to the plate and run for the offices if there's openings. That's what I request more than anything. I know I'm running uncontested. Mickey Mouse may win. But the point is, we have to have people involved with the city. They have to come up and just put their put their good foot forward and say, hey, I'll put in some time. And it's really important, and that's where the term limits, they were mentioned as far as votes. Yes, it's important. Everybody's vote is very important. But the point is we have to have people more involved in the city. Any organization that you have, it's the same thing. People, they kind of pull their hat down and they'll walk away. We have to get people involved. And everybody's opinion is really important in this city. Whether you agree with us or disagree with us, it's just part of that. So yes, there should be term limits. You shouldn't start out at 25 and end up at 90. Sorry.
Mr. Gretzky?
Thank you. I'm quite torn on the question because I do agree with Alan a lot. Like, we have elections and that's what they're for. If you don't like what they're doing, you vote them out. But I also think there is something to state about, the current state of politics and how it is, locally, state, at the federal level, that there are people that have been in positions for a long time. But you always hear the complaint is, it's not my representative that's the issue, it's just all the other ones. And then they advocate for term limits, and maybe there's some truth to that, maybe not. So I'm quite torn. I'd say maybe in the current state of politics, term limits might be a good thing, just as maybe a fresh start. But I also do agree with Alan that, we have elections, and if you don't like if I'm fortunate enough to be elected, and if you don't like what I'm doing 4 years from now, boot me out. That's what you should do.
Mr. Iverson?
Thank you. We have elections. So I could be term limited out in a couple of weeks. I hope I'm not. But if you don't like what I've done or what I've said or how I presented myself, or you think that Luke's vision of the city is better, I don't necessarily think that, please vote for him. Otherwise, I'm right here willing to go forward and work with everyone in the city to make this a better community. Thank you.
All right, that concludes our questions. So now we will have maximum 1 minute for each of the members of the panel to make a concluding statement. Mr. Iverson.
Thank you. I've been on the council on several occasions, non-consecutive terms. I've been involved in many aspects of the city government. I hope to in the future, even if I'm not reelected, there's always a commission or a board for me to serve on. But I think I'm the better candidate, as I have been very much versed in the budgeting process for the city, the needs of the city, and I have talked to many people in the community in the last 3 or 4 weeks about what they think of different aspects of what we're doing. And I've gotten a lot of feedback in my notebook that I hopefully will be able to use going forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dretzky.
Thank you. So first I want to thank the League of Women Voters again for hosting this forum. It's really important that we engage so that we can have term limits in like elections and throw people out when we don't like them. And I do actually hope that you engage in the very term limits and hopefully cast your vote for me to be the city council person for District 4, as I believe not only do I have the right vision for the city, but I'm also bringing a new generation hopefully to the council to help make these decisions. Again, I want to emphasize a couple points. The debt utilization has increased at a dramatic level. In 2024, it was at about 13 million, and now it's actually up to $20 million for debt capacity. That's at a 55% rate. I confirmed that in the financial statements as well from the city administrator. So there is definitely some work to do. I hope that the voters trust me to deliver that, because ultimately not only am I someone that's ethical but will do the hard work, but I also believe that I can build the city that fits for my family and yours. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Reamer.
I'm honored that I was on your council for the last 2 years, and hopefully I can serve you out for the next 4. It's important to me that I do the best I can do for you. That's the reason I'm here. And like I say, I love to hear from people, and I do talk to a lot of people because I'm a socialite. But the thing is we have to have people involved, and we have to hear from everybody. If you have a complaint, please, please, please call me or find out where I'm at. It's easy for me, to miss a lot of people when they don't call. So please do that. I really look forward to talking to you. And even if you're not in my district, don't be afraid to call me. It's important. So thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you. Mr. Gatsky.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you, everybody at home that actually took the time and watched this all the way through. Thank you to the League of Women Voters, everybody in the room. A big thank you to my wife and kids at home. I think being on city council is more involved, I think, than anybody really thinks that it is. The amount of emails that we get and phone calls, and just trying to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the city as it moves forward. I really enjoy being on city council. I'm hoping my constituents vote for me over me, but that's their choice. But I really do appreciate everybody being here, so.
Ms. Sorensen.
You're going to say the same thing?
No. I want to thank you all for coming. I enjoy serving on city council. Committee appointments, not so much, but I do take the stewardship of taxpayer dollars very seriously. That is your investment in quality of life. It's a sacred trust. And I believe every council member is concerned about having Ripon be the best it can be. Thank you.
All right, that concludes our candidate forum. Just a reminder that the general election is coming up on Tuesday, April 7th. And I listed the offices that will be on our ballot here in this area. But let me extend, on behalf of the Ripon Area League of Women Voters, my thanks to the audience for your respectful attendance and your excellent questions. And let's give our panel a round of applause and thank them for their commitment to public service. Thank you. Good evening.